Hello, hello, and welcome to A Slight Chance of Adventure, a Pathfinder First Edition Adventure Diary podcast. My name is Tyler. I was the DM of this campaign, and this,
Hello, I'm Gavin. I was the best player of this campaign, obviously.
at least that's what he claims. So, seeing as this is our first episode, hopefully of many, um, I suppose we should walk through a couple of things about what exactly it is we're doing. Pathfinder. If you are a D&D player, which I imagine most of you are, it's like D&D,
But not for babies.
it's a little more complicated. There's some benefits of that, like more character customization, but don't worry, you'll have an easy time following along, because most of this will just be about what happens in the story. And if you have no idea what either of these things are, go look up what a TTRPG is, and that'll cover you. Campaign diary. We'll be talking about what happened in our campaign, in the campaign that I ran for Gavin and 3 other players. With all that said, please like and subscribe to this channel that actually doesn't yet exist at the time of recording, but hopefully, if things go well, it will.
Yeah.
So, Gavin,
Yes.
do you remember how Campaign 1 started? It's been a little while.
A festival and
Yes.
a lot of nervous players, to be honest. Um,
Oh, yeah.
just about everyone was kind of new. I was new to this group, but not new to the game.
Me and Gavin had been friends a fair bit before this, but
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Well, everyone else is like farther away.
I think everyone was complete. Well, one of the other players had played D&D a little bit, but
yeah.
otherwise, Gavin actually had far more experience in Pathfinder than me at this time, because this was my first time ever running the game.
Mm-hmm. I DM'd a little bit beforehand. It wasn't amazing, but
no, you see, he's the reason I was inspired to DM, because I thought I could do better.
yeah, and here we are. Anyway.
So I'll repeat some of the information I gave everybody at the start. So what happens is we opened on with a little info. The campaign is based in the Wakatupi archipelago, which is a set of 5 islands off the southern coast of Astoria, to the north of Abasara. Don't worry about those, we can get into them later. The Wakatupi archipelago has a little special thing about it, referred to generally as the desecration cycle. Although I don't know if we ever used that name in campaign.
No, I think it was always the destruction cycle, or
yeah, it was just
the
destruction.
end of these fucking islands.
Oh, and the current year is 726 AOA, and the desecration cycle takes place every 300 to 700 years, and it results in a great big destruction happening in the archipelago, after which point another island usually forms. And it's been roughly 500 years since the last destruction. The players start on the island of Wanatuma, which is a mostly peaceful farming community, near the town of Takdir, at a set of ruins where they often celebrate a festival known as the Cyclus Festival, which is led by followers of Hestra, the god of fate, and is supposed to make some predictions about what the coming year, and whether it'll be good, whether it'll be bad. And I have to ask Gavin, what was your impressions at first?
Of like the islands themselves, or the festival?
Yeah, like how are you?
Sorry. It's well, I was quite interested to see like how you DM at this point, because like, you yourself haven't exactly experienced that much Pathfinder in total.
Yeah, I was very inexperienced. I'd gotten like less than 10 sessions in me time, I think.
You still need like help with some of the rules.
Yeah. Well, that's what you were there for.
Yeah, I was like the one
yeah, just help.
Yeah, which was fine. I miss those days. Um, from that point, it's like just that was the only thing I was really thinking about.
Right, right. Well, we can get to something you probably had some thoughts about, which is the players. So we opened up on one of our players, a Hobgoblin Slayer, which a Slayer is kind of just like an edgy fighter. For those of you who don't know what that is. um, and he was a slaver before the campaign started, though the other players didn't find out about that for a little bit. He had actually very recently been chasing a slave, been attacked by some rival pirates, and had fled into the nearby island after getting knocked off the side of
Yeah,
the
I
ship.
remember you like showed up to the festival all wet and shit.
Yeah, yeah, and you guys had no idea why. He's just like, why is this hobgoblin all wet?
Moisture isn't
Yeah.
applicable to hobgoblins.
But yeah, he showed up. He was kind of just wandering around, and a fisherman salesman, because there was a lot of stalls set up at this festival. One of them would just kind of like call them over. He's like, "Hey, you want some fish?" And it was just he sat down and had some fish.
Yeah.
Any thoughts about him?
Fuck. What was his name?
Orcus. Oh yeah,
Orcus.
I should mention Orcus, not the demon lord.
Yeah,
he stumbled on that name completely unrelated to the demon lord. He just
Really?
stumbled upon it and thought that's no. He thought it was just like a cool name.
Wow.
I think it may have been listed somewhere among hobgoblin names somewhere. And he just liked it, and it was like, yeah, my character's name Orcus, and we all kind of just looked at him like, do you know? Do you? And he had no idea.
Just imagining like an actual person like living under a rock for so many years, they come out to the real world to get married, have a family. I'm gonna name my kid Lucifer because that's a great name.
Yeah.
What do you mean I can't name my kid Lucifer?
Next introduced was a half-elf druid by the name of Elika from a community, a rather secluded community on a different island, named the Maja Druids. She was visiting the festival because she was just rather curious about the outside world and found an opportunity to get out and see things. She was being chased around by a bunch of children who'd never seen an elf before.
Right. Because no one at this point, no one knew that the Druids were in there.
Yeah, no. Well, they knew of it, but and also like elves are most of the druids were humans too. So elves were just super uncommon to be seen. Like they might see some from the continent when they come by, but that's especially on Wanatuma, this island, elves are very uncommon. And lastly, because the fourth player was introduced in a different session, so we'll get to them then. But lastly was Gavin's character.
Hey, Sean.
Yeah. Sean. How did you enter? Yeah, she's an oracle, which is like the sorcerer equivalent to cleric. If you were to compare a cleric to wizard.
My first encounter was helping a guy not get his shit beaten by these two people, not really knowing the culture, but apparently he came from the island of slavers.
Yeah, so one dude,
coming from.
There are two tribes, historical tribes of these islands, the Waka and the Tupi. I know, very creative with the naming. But the Tupi were generally regarded as slavers because most of them lived by slaving. And so he was on this island, a Tupi person, and two Waka were harassing him. And Shanla came by and tried to prevent that.
I diffused the situation.
Yeah, you did. I think it was like you offered to
take them out for drinks.
Buy them. Yeah. That was the player introductions.
Mm-hmm.
After which time the campaign got started for real, I'd have to say. The Cyclus ritual began, which was essentially the followers of Hestra, the god of fate, do a ritual that was supposed to bring about a prediction of things to come. So all the players were drawn over to look at this going on, big ritual. Ooh, cool. So yeah, as the ritual's going on, they're all watching, and then one little boy from among these robed people who are kind of like dancing around doing this ritual shouts out and says, "It's coming!" And like he seems to be very distressed. Um, and after that, you hear out into the forest nearby, somebody shout, "Finally, finally, we will feast!" At which point we had our first combat encounter.
Right. If I remember right, a bunch of like these creatures that were covered in what we would call in the future blight, this like black guck.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was part of it. They, I think, generally refer to them as void beasts,
Mm-hmm.
or at least I called them that. They were like some sort of animals, but heavily corrupted animals. And fuck ton of those came out and started attacking the festival.
Yeah. Um, and strangely enough, like there was like a bit of concern because these dogs kept or these creatures kept coming, right? And
Yeah,
we fought them for a
because
little.
my goal here was to make you guys run away after
Yeah.
killing a couple.
We fought them for a little bit, and then some of them were like I think it was Elika and
yeah.
Orcus. They were getting a bit gun ho and wanting to keep fighting them. And
Well, no, it was mostly it was Alika. Alika's player didn't quite catch on as fast as the other two that you were supposed to run away. So there was a moment where she was surrounded, and because the rest of the festival just immediately fled towards the ships that were docked nearby. And the players got to fight a little. Then it was supposed to become obvious that you were supposed to flee. And most of you caught on. Alika's player took a moment, but with a little prodding from the other players, figured it out.
Yeah.
At which point you
I can't quite remember. Did we start level 1 for this?
Yeah, this was level 1. We ended up at level 7.
Right. Oh yeah. The druid also had a pet companion called Leon. It was a leopard.
Oh yeah. Yes. Like a leopard. It was the small cat. No, not small cat, but like not quite a lion, but not quite a house cat. You know.
Yeah.
So
pardon for the gaps in my memory. This was a while ago.
Oh, I know. That's why I took good notes. So at this point, all the players flee to the ships. They're the last ones to get there, and they're directed onto the last ship remaining in the port by what seems to be the leader of the Sightseekers, the followers of Hestra, and who seems to be an old elven woman, very old. At which point you get onto the ship and are making your way down the canal, away from the ship, being like chased alongside by like the void beasts, but they leave you. They can't really quite get to the ship. They don't seem to like water.
Thank God for that.
Yeah, at this point, I think it was you met Persif, the boy who shouted during the ritual. Yeah,
right.
Because he was traumatized by whatever visions he had seen.
I remember like I tried to do like medical aid for anyone who I could on board.
Oh yeah. You like use nearly all of your spells to like do a bit of healing. That was good. People did die. Some people came in with injuries. You know.
There's a very common thing of I was the heal bitch.
Oh yeah. His character build was heal.
Whether it was myself or others, it was excessive healing all the time. I couldn't attack because I had burnt arms. And
yes, because oracles all have a curse that is some sort of disadvantage on them. So his fingers were all crispy, and so he couldn't use any weapons really. After healing some people and and also Elika's Leon got patted by some of the children who were less terrified of the big cat. And I think Orcus found a corner to hide in.
Yes.
to not, because he'd been getting bad stares from people, because hobgoblins are also known as slavers in the Wakatupi archipelago. He also talked a little to Tuzma, the leader, the half elf, elf leader of the followers of Hestra, and kind of asked her about like what's going on. She said, "I don't know." At which point, as guys were nearing the boats were like you were the last boat, so you see a lot of the boats were like stopped at the edge of the canal, kind of the river, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And you learned that there were some pirates trying to take everyone hostage.
Right. The
Yeah.
furries.
How did you feel about this when you first saw it happening?
I remember I was thinking that like this is definitely a situation that we couldn't fight our way out of, being level 1s.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking that the big Catman wasn't that horrible.
Yeah, well, I was gonna get to that. The leader of the Ivory Fang Pirates, which are they're a pirate organization largely of escaped slaves, and many of the slaves come from the southern continent of Avasara, which has a lot of animal folk, so like cat folk, bird folk, so on, and they get captured as slaves, brought to Wakatupi, and then eventually up further to Astoria. But some of the ones escape, and the leader of the Ivory Fang Pirates is Druin, catfolk, a dark-haired catfolk.
And also, I got this man's name confused all the time. It was always Darwin or.
Oh yeah, no, Druin's name. Yeah, Druin's name was constantly in flux among the players. But no, like he like announced to everybody like, "Hey, we're taking you hostage," and there wasn't much that could be done. So they're like, "Okay, yeah, sure. I guess we're hostages now, everybody." So then they kind of like surrounded the civilian ships and were escorting them somewhere. And the players got a chance to talk to Druin because he like hopped onto the ship to kind of talk to Tuzma because she was the de facto leader.
Oh right, they're like, "Oh yeah, we don't like slavers," but like, and then Shauna retorted with, "But aren't you like taking people hostage and like?"
Yeah. Which I
them?
should mention. Like they did not treat Druin with any sort of respect or like fear. They're like, "Oh, I know you're a good guy," kind of is the vibe. like I was like trying to be an intimidating cat man, being like big scary pirate dude, but they're just like, "Oh, that's cute."
I am the leader of an infamous band of rebels. Oh, kitty cat.
Yeah. And that's essentially how it felt with how you treated him.
Yes.
But anyway, the Ivory Fang pirates escort the ships to. They spent about half a day because that's about how long it takes to travel between islands, traveling to the island, or at least off the coast of Maleku, which is where the Elika, the druid, is from. It's a far more like. There's not really cities there, it's kind of just covered in forest jungle, because it's generally a tropical climate in Wakatupi, and you go there, and Ivory Fang was supposed to meet up. It became clear that Ivory Fang had been hired by someone, or something, and they were supposed to give the civilians over to someone else. But then the people that they met off of Maleku were not the people Druin seemed to expect. He was very quickly upset when he saw the Stone Chain Pirates, which are the Slavers Pirates. They're just the bad guys.
Yeah.
That was made very obvious. Like Druin shouted something about not expecting this deal, and pretty quickly arguments break out and a fight breaks out. At which point Druin, because he's much higher level than the players, hops over to the other boat so I don't have to worry about him. And some other pirates come over onto the player's boat, and we have another combat.
Yeah, I really got to like this combat felt like more like a real combat, I would say, than the first one.
Right.
Well, in the first one,
you didn't have to run away.
Yeah, we didn't have to run away. We actually got to like continue fighting this one.
We
did really pretty good for it, I would say. Except, like the usual stuff that you have to do with new players.
Oh yeah, well, combat was still a little slow at this point, but it went pretty well. I was new to also at this point. I didn't realize exactly how CR worked, so I was actually throwing I was doing things a little less difficult than I probably should have been at the time. Like I thought a CR1 creature meant it was a challenge for the entire party of level 1 characters. That's not how CR works in Pathfinder.
I am personally of the opinion that CR doesn't work. It's very general CR.
Yeah, it's very general. You have to do a little bit of your own work whenever picking at CR, which I eventually figured out, though not for a little bit into this campaign.
Yeah.
And one thing I will mention is this is the point where Orcus's player expressed themselves the most. He had a tendency to crack jokes at dangerous moments. So he was essentially making fun of the lizard folk that he was fighting, which one of the slaver pirates was a lizard folk.
I didn't realize that, but like just thinking of that conversation was like, so what were you saying to that lizard folk earlier? You want to say it to me? And it's like, no. I feel like I've caused a mistake.
The Stone Chain Pirates are beaten and forced to retreat. At which point, Druin is left at a little bit of an impasse because he doesn't have anyone to give these hostages he's got to anymore. He's probably not getting payment, so he kind of he's like, well, I guess I've got no choice but to help you people.
Yep.
I remember. Yeah.
As the good kid he is.
Yeah, yes. Because I never intended Druin to be like a bad guy. He was meant to be. Now, of course, you guys detected that a little earlier than expected, but
Yeah.
And so he invites everyone to Little Avsar, which is the Stone Chain Pirates' hideaway on Maleku. At which point the session ended. So, any overriding thoughts?
Not really.
No,
I was just glad to not be the DM anymore when we started doing this. But yeah, it was kind of cool to get invested into this new island
right.
with this calamity that we thought we were like, oh yeah, it's got to be starting. Like something's bad's gonna be happening soon, and we were all.
Well, yeah, I mentioned the moment I mentioned the desecration cycle. Or the Great Destruction. Everybody's like, okay, that's what the campaign's gonna be. Which, spoiler, that's what the campaign's gonna be. That's what the
well, could you imagine
little
if it
boy
wasn't?
was shouting about. He's like, oh yeah, guys, there's a big destruction that happens sometimes. Anyway, let's do something else.
You want to talk about taxes? But no, not really any other notes. Other than that.
Well, then we'll talk about a little bit of behind-the-scenes stuff. Ready? This session was, I think my word count for notes taken on this is the highest of any session I've ever run.
Really?
Because I didn't know how to plan for a session, right? So I kind of just I wrote full paragraphs for everything. And I was like, okay, I'm ready, but you learn pretty quickly during the session. You don't have time to just go and read a paragraph of notes. So I think immediately after you probably see maybe 1/3 of the amount of written for the next session. Yeah. What did it feel like to?
I honestly, I remember as any other session is, other than the fact that we were all kind of nervous to what's good with role playing, how do we role play, stuff like that. We were all kind of getting into our boots with this first session.
I remember, I feel like there was a fair bit of assurances of yeah, that's okay, yeah, you can say that. Or somebody would want to say something, they'd well, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
But I will say everything went pretty much exactly to plan. You guys didn't do too much unexpected. I had plans for if you did something unexpected, but yeah, you kind of followed the path laid out before you.
I think I remember on the boat. This is kind of out of context, but like or a little off the beaten path, but like on the boat, couldn't find a place to like sleep while we were traveling, so she kind of had like a moment where she just tried to get anybody's attention. It's like, oh dear, what will a poor fair maiden do all by herself with nowhere to stay? And then this old lady helped her out. This is a nice
Oh
moment.
yeah.
But yeah, that's all I have for the
The,
first.
the session took about 3.5 hours. I remember I'm not that's not going to be a constant thing. I remember I just for some reason I noted that 3.5 hours. Most sessions ended up taking 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah.
So this one was a little longer. Um, so now this section of the video would be where we take some community questions. Hopefully, eventually we can do that. For now, we
So some community questions. Tumbleweed goes by.
yeah. So tell me, Gavin, what questions do you think the community would have for us?
What's the Great Destruction? I don't know.
Great destruction. It's a great big destruction.
Yes.
That stuff happens.
Big bad happens.
You learn more about that later, but for now that was ambiguous, so leave it ambiguous. Oh, I can't believe I'll probably put this back at the start. The way we play this is over voice chat. This was not an in-person game.
Right.
And the way we actually make our battle maps is in Minecraft, because none of us really had a virtual tabletop or wanted to. So we would use Minecraft's grid system, still do to this day, to make the battle maps. And then just talk over Xbox voice chat.
Yeah, Minecraft is surprisingly good at that. You treat each block like a 5-foot square, and you're set.
Yeah.
Although it does kind of make like some things look ginormous.
Yeah, the scale is definitely a little off at times, but we make do.
We make it work.
Yeah, I mean it's got. So then, hopefully we'll see everybody who finds this video.
Yes.
In the next episode. But with that said, please like and subscribe, assuming the channel exists. And see you guys next time. Bye.
Thank you.